So this week you are going to learn about authenticating users and authorizing users to view different pages in an application based on their assigned roles. So we're going to create a project in the first lecture demo. You're going to download a project that I have completed the pages on, and you're going to be adding Microsoft Identity to those pages, and you will be creating roles and creating like a role uh, creation page that's not going to be linked into anything. You'll have to go to it directly and enter the roles. And then we'll be adding that ability to add a role into the login, just so you can kind of see how the process works. And then we'll be adding some authorization to limit access to different action methods. So you'll see how all of that works in this project. And there are hands-on that are integrated right into this, along with videos. And here's the GitHub project that you'll be downloading. And once you finish that, you're going to upload the link to GitHub in the Dropbox. And then I'm going to have you do kind of a simple Google authentication. So this is all hands-on because we're going to be adding roles, but we're going to implement them differently because we're using Google authentication. Um, so you're going to create a brand new app. I'm going to call it this. You're going to use the most current version of .NET, and then make sure you've got individual accounts turned on. And I don't have videos for this, but what you're going to be doing for the most part is things that you've already done. Um, so if you run into problems or have questions, please reach out because I'd be happy to help you. Um, you can see that we're going to add Microsoft Identity to the app, which is exactly what you did in the other project. Okay, you'll be modifying program CS just like you did in the other project. What's new here is this little Google bit, and this may be a little different for each of you. So especially the URI that you need to add, the only way you're going to see that is by actually running your application. Okay, and so that has to be added down here. So what you're going to see when you run your application is the first part, and then you have to add sign in Google to the second part. Okay, and when you create this, you're going to get a pop-up. This is part of the reason I didn't do a video on this. And it's going to show you your client ID and your client secret, and those are unique to you. Okay, so um, once you've done that, then you can add the Google authentication to your project. And so this is the code that you need to add to your app settings.json. And so where I have your ID here, you are going to copy this ID and paste it. And then where I've got, your client secret here, that's where you're going to copy this and paste it down here. And you do need to make sure you save this. So um, I copied mine into a notepad document and saved them. But I think it'll work better if you just keep this open and have your app open and then copy directly from there. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when I copied from Notepad, it added some weird extra characters. So I had to kind of edit it to make sure it was accurate. Then you're going to go into your program CS and you will add the using statements to the top. Okay. And then you do have to add the services for authentication, for your Google authentication. And this is the code that you're going to need to use. And this is the location that you need to add it. And .NET 9 and .NET 7 are going to be a little different in the fact that one of them says add default identity and the other one says add identity. So because this is a .NET 9 project, you're going to see add default identity. And in the previous project, because that was .NET 7, you saw add identity. Okay, so these are little differences that you're going to run into with the versioning. And so you just need to get used to it because that's part of Microsoft world. So then you'll update your login page. The page exists. This is the location. And then there'll be a closing form tag because login page is a form. So there'll be a closing form tag, and then you're going to put this code after it. Okay, and then next thing you can do is add the roles to the middleware pipeline, which is this code. So this is the existing code, and you're going to have to replace it with this code. Okay, and don't run a build and run the app until you're done with step 5. Okay, so from step 3 to step 5, you got to complete these steps or your app isn't going to run correctly. Okay, and so this just kind of explains other changes that you need to make. So we need to integrate the Google login with the user roles. Okay, so we're kind of looking at what's in the current code. Okay, so this is the location of the current code. And for .NET 9, this is what the current code looks like. And you can see here, there's a comment, sign in the user with their external login. And then here it says if they succeeded, if they're locked out, and then below that is what you need to do if it didn't succeed. And so here's the full original code. Okay, and we need to modify the else portion because we need them to add a user role when a new account is created. And right now, it does not do that. Okay, so this code does add the user role. So basically, in this little app, everybody's going to be a user. Okay, you can see it's adding the user role. And how we're going to code up the administrator is we're going to put that in the seed data. Okay, so this is for everybody else. Step 5 is creating the user roles themselves. If you remember in the last project, we went to a create screen and we added them manually. And in this project, we're going to generate them. And we are going to create the admin account and the admin password in our seed data. And because this is a server-side app, when you go to view source, you can't see that. Okay, so it's perfectly safe and secure. So you do need to add a seed data class to the data folder. And this is the code that you need to add to that class. And so you can see here we're creating an array that has our role names. Okay, and here we're actually creating them. Here we've got our administrator email and password. So whatever you put in here, you can put whatever you want. That's what you actually need to log in with. Okay, and then If the administrator account doesn't exist, we're creating it. Okay. And down here, this last little check, basically, if the account exists, we're just making sure that the user role of admin is there. Okay, so, and why wouldn't it be there? Well, if you logged in with the admin account before you assign the admin user role, it won't be there. Or, maybe uh, later on you decide to come in and you change this to somebody with an existing email. They would not be an admin either. So that just kind of is a catch-all. Let's see. So the last thing that we have to do here is modify program CS. And that is because uh, program CS actually has to run the seed data, and the seed data interacts with the database. So we have to use async and await with that. But the problem is that our main method doesn't have async in it, and it's not a task. So kind of our workaround for this is to kind of wrap up the initializer, the call for the seed data to run it. We're wrapping that in its own little task. And so this is going to run on a thread in the background. It's not going to be on the main thread, which is important because we don't want the main thread blocked. Okay, and then get awaiter and get result basically force this to complete without interruption. So once it starts running on the thread, it is going to finish. Okay, and so because we definitely want that seed data in there before somebody tries to log in. Okay, and then we get into testing the code. So at this point, your app it should work. You should be able to log in as the administrator. You should be able to log in as, with the Google authentication. It will add you as a user. But to kind of prove that it worked, um, we are going to be adding some roles, and we also need to modify some of the screens that you see when log in and register. First of all, we are only going to use login. We're not going to use the register link. So you're going to comment that out. And then secondly, when we log in, there are links for a forgotten password, to register as a new user, and to resend email. I'm going to comment all those out. You can comment them out or delete them, but we aren't going to use them. Okay. And so then we are going to allow people to delete their accounts. We are going to allow people to add their phone numbers and set up two-factor authentication if that's what they want to do. So once they log in, they can click on their login and get to that section. But we are not going to have them change the email because they're authenticating through Google. And they don't have a password. So we do need to remove those options from that menu. And so you can delete them or you can comment them out like I did. Okay. And so after you make those changes, if you run the app, you should notice that register is no longer on our navigation bar. When you go to log in, those, links for sending email, forgetting the password, all of that are gone. And after you log in and you click on your account, the email and the password commands are no longer there. So at this point, what you're going to do is you're going to modify the home controller and you're going to add these three action methods with authorize enrolls, just so that you can see how this works, with the admin and with the user. Okay, and then you will be adding these corresponding views that will display. And then finally, you're going to go into the layout page and add these navigation links to the menu. Okay, and once you do that, you can run the app, log out of everything, um, try to access all the pages. You should only be able to see home, privacy, and everybody. And then you'll use your Google authentication. You'll be able to see home, privacy, everybody, and authenticated users. And then finally, you'll log out and log in with the admin account, and you should be able to see everything. Okay? So in a nutshell, that is this project. Okay, and once you've got everything working, you are going to push that up to GitHub and submit a link in this Dropbox. And at this point, you know everything you need to complete your term project. And we have gone through these requirements before, but if we take another look, so at this point, you should be through number 5, okay? And you are now on number 6. And I'm going to leave it up to you as far as what kind of registration and authentication you're going to have them do. You can do the Google authentication. You can actually have them register and log in, like the authentication project, or you can do it like the Google authentication project, okay? Whichever one you'd prefer. Okay? So you should be able to complete number 6. Okay? So if you have questions or problems, let me know. Have a great week.